This is The Wire for 2300 Zulu, October 7th, 2025. Precedence is routine. Information cutoff is 2200. Bottom line up front. Israeli government launches campaign targeting the GPS position of American Christians during worship services. Pravda publisher dead after fall from apartment window. German mayor wounded in stabbing attack. Beginning with international events. In Germany, overnight, the mayor of Herdecke, Iris Stalzer, remains in critical condition after being jumped and stabbed by a group of men. Analysts comment. As is customary in Germany, very few details have been released on this case. However, locals observed Stalzer's own adopted son being taken from the scene in handcuffs and an evidence-preserving suit. Locals state that she was attacked and mugged by a group of migrants and that when police arrived, they discovered that her own adopted son was part of the gang that attacked her. Right now, this is purely rumor, and only a single photo adds credence to the claims that her son was involved in some way. Time will tell what the truth is in this case, and in the absence of information, there's not much to go on either way. In Russia, yesterday afternoon, the publisher of Pravda died after falling from a window in Moscow. Vyacheslav Leontiev was discovered deceased after falling from his fifth-story apartment window, with local authorities stating that he jumped after experiencing a nervous breakdown. On the home front, in the United States, controversy has mounted following the publishing of FARA documents pertaining to surveillance operations at Christian churches throughout the western United States. Last week, the official Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs partnered with, or created themselves, the ownership data is sketchy, an LLC in the United States by the name of Show Faith by Works LLC. As this company is directly controlled by a foreign government, it was required to register under the Foreign Agents Registration Act, or FARA. In the 86-page registration form, the organizers self-described this company as being formed to carry out the, quote, largest geofencing and targeted Christian digital campaign ever. This would be accomplished by geofencing most churches in the region and displaying targeted ads to Christians specifically with reference to the October 7th attacks while they are actively attending a church service, per the paperwork that was filed. Analyst comments for this wire. Everyone is strongly encouraged to read the documentation yourself, as linked below on the official U.S. government website. Overall, what this means in the clearest possible terms is that if you are a Christian who brings your cell phone to church in the western United States, the government of Israel is openly and publicly surveilling your phone and your exact GPS coordinates. If anyone did not surmise such before, this paperwork confirms beyond all doubt that this is occurring. As a reminder, this is not a private company. This is the actual Israeli government purchasing analytics data from American service providers. As such, Christians who bring their phones to church during worship times will very likely receive targeted advertisements to encourage them to think a certain way about the October 7th attacks while in church, as the paperwork specifically states that smartphones owned by Christians will be targeted during worship times. The documentation detailing this campaign is also not limited to churches. The GPS tracking merely starts once a Christian enters into the geofenced area around a church. If a Christian enters a church perimeter but later leaves, the surveillance of their GPS position will continue. The geofencing barriers being placed around churches are merely to identify which smartphones belong to Christians. If a person's phone enters the church grounds on a certain time on Sunday morning, this device can be associated with Christianity, and once that association is made, targeted ads and further surveillance can be undertaken at a later time and place. Most analytics data that is available for purchase on the free market is anonymized. Buyers can't tell what your phone number or name is. But, based on the context of a person being physically located inside a church, this is good enough for Israeli governmental needs when it comes to this information campaign. It is this association that is important. The aggregation of the geographic context of one's position is concerning. Using these geofencing parameters, this campaign is not really about serving ads while a person is in church. It's a mass database of Christians. All of this is allegedly being done to push pro-Israel propaganda, as openly admitted by their own documentation. They even put together many PowerPoint slides detailing the plans of this campaign, as well as a list of allegedly every single church that has been targeted for this operation. All things considered, the only reason we know about this effort is because the actual government of Israel created this company. If it were instead a shell company or an American-owned entity, no one would know this surveillance is taking place, and service providers would happily sell their customers' data to the highest bidder secretly. Foreign governments target American citizens for advertising purposes all the time, usually on topics like tourism. What makes this campaign worthy of mention is that it is attempting to be the largest in history, and it's targeting Americans purely and solely based on their faith. Furthermore, considering Israel's history with electronic devices and the nature of this alleged ad campaign specifically to target Christians for their faith and church attendance, there are much wider concerns than a simple ad being displayed on one's social media timeline. The same foreign government that exploded devices in the pockets of their enemies is now openly and specifically targeting Christian smartphones, and the US government is fine with it as long as they fill out a form first. When American citizens have to think about putting their phone in a Faraday bag before they pull into the church parking lot on Sunday, just so that a foreign government doesn't track them back to their home afterward, this is a problem. Openly paying clergymen money to specifically read a script spouting the talking points of a nation-state leaves very little uncertainty as to what the overall goals of this endeavor are. And while the situation is not new by any means, and may even be pencil-whipped into being legal over the years, pretending that this behavior is not abhorrent is also disingenuous. If this exact effort were to be carried out by any other nation, very serious consequences would result. But because of what has become obvious in American politics, there is almost zero chance that there will be any pushback on this at all, at least from federal agencies. On February 5, 2025, Attorney General Pam Bondi signed a memo to all Department of Justice employees outlining her initiatives for the department after being appointed to the position. This memo specifically referenced her initiative to change FARA reporting requirements for the first time in decades. This memo ordered the disbanding of the NSA's Corporate Enforcement Unit, as well as the Foreign Influence Task Force. Granted, random government task forces aren't often effective at much, so this could have just been routine downsizing after a change of power in Washington. However, the overall strategic goal of the DOJ as outlined in this memo is clear: to downsize and deprioritize FARA policing requirements. More broadly, while this is a brazen effort by a foreign government, it would be very foolish to assume that this is the first time such action has been undertaken. These documents, while quite illuminating for some, are the least surprising smoking gun documents to come to light in recent memory. Even this campaign is not alone. There are two other wings of this operation. Project Esther is a similar effort also being carried out by the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and is the line of effort that specifically targets social media influencers to push pro-Israeli messaging. The other branch of this operation is the Project 545 initiative, which is the more well-funded aspect of these efforts. This more generalized program is intended to launch a $145 million propaganda campaign to target Americans in general, with specific pro-Israeli messaging. This concludes The Wire for 2300 Zulu, October 7th, 2025.